Public Safety Committee meeting for September 22nd, 2025. Councilor Walden.
Here.
Wolverton.
Here.
Brandt.
Here.
Nelms.
Here.
And Harper.
Here.
Full house.
Thank you, Mr. Seegers. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to dispense the reading and approve of the minutes from the Public Safety Committee meeting from September 8th.
So moved.
Councilor Nelms.
Second.
Councilor Harden, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it 5-0. We're going to take a couple of items out of order real quick, just to go ahead and get, I think, someone in the room taken care of. Is Laura Roberts here from the courts? She's not here, Mr. Adams? Are you? Okay, carried over.
I want her involved.
I agree. So 170925 will be carried over if there's no objection. 110925, request for consideration of additional streetlights along South Lakeshore and the West Trail parking lot on South Lakeshore. So same item that's in finance?
Yes, same item. There are a couple of blind spots on South Lake Shore, and in the smaller parking lot, there are absolutely no lights. And so we've had problems with parking down there after hours,
Yeah.
and we need to kind of nip that in the bud.
So three lights in the
Three
parking
in that,
lot and
yeah.
7 along Lakeshore. So this item's already been
7 or 10? Randy?
10 total.
10 total?
Yeah, total.
Okay. Okay.
So
That
this
will-
item's already been approved by finance for
Move to
funding.
approve.
Okay,
Beautiful.
motion by Councilor Wolverton,
Second.
second by Councilor Nelms. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay? The ayes have it, 5-0. Okay, 120925, request for consideration of an ordinance related to strengthening regulations related to encampment. So, since we have a lot of folks here, I'm glad that we've had a lot of the community show up to provide their experience and to share their interest in this topic. In the idea of providing some direction for how we can have all of the voices heard in the room and make sure that we're capturing, I guess, the experiences, we're going to first have Chief discuss a little bit about what he needs with this ordinance, and then if you still feel like you would like to share an experience or a suggestion that you feel like would be relevant to an encampment ordinance, we have a microphone here, so we'll just need your address and we'll need your name, first name and last name on the Mr. Seegers' sign-in list so we can have a record who is here speaking. And if there's any questions, we'll make this a conversation and it'll be a good experience. So, Chief.
Thank you,
Tell us a little bit about what you need.
This is obviously an important issue by virtue of the size of the crowd tonight. So, you know, it's something that I've talked to some of the city leadership, some of my staff, some of the challenges that we face on a daily basis concerning our homeless population that we serve here in Homewood has to do with overnight camping. Encampments that they might erect in our parks, adjacent to or on our running trail in various places, and sleeping in their cars at various places. We've had numerous complaints concerning encampments and sleeping overnight in Homewood. So I think that's what the Public Safety Committee has taken on to try to combat or give us some tools as your police department to try to combat. And this is not a uncommon problem. You've probably done some research yourself like I have. I think there's been about 150 plus cities nationwide just in this year alone that have enacted an ordinance or ordinances to address things like this. So what we're doing or what we're talking about doing tonight is not unusual by any means. What we're doing currently, your police department, is when we come across people who are camping in our city, maybe they've erected some sort of temporary shelter, maybe it's actually a tent, maybe it's just a sleeping bag, maybe it's in their car. We try to ask them to leave the public parks. Maybe they're in the library parking lot, maybe they're in West Homewood Park, maybe they're in Central Park. We try to ask them to leave and go to a different area to sleep. That's about all we can do at this point, and hope that they comply with us. For their safety and for the safety of everybody in Homewood, we think that's the best policy right now, the best practice. That's what we've been doing. But what we have found is we're seeing these same people almost on a daily basis come back after being told to leave a certain public area. We're seeing them come back and camp again, or move to a different area and camp again. So we're encountering the same people over and over again without a tool to be able to utilize to make them stop this behavior. So I think that's what we're here to talk about tonight on the Public Safety Committee agenda, is something that would allow our officers not only to tell them to leave, but when they don't, or when they do and they come back, we would have the ability to enforce an ordinance. And some type of punishment would take place after that ordinance is enforced by our officers. Currently, I don't believe we have an ordinance like that. And I think it's something that is going to be necessary if that is the wishes of the people that live in Homewood, of the people that you represent. If you don't want people camping on your public property, in your parks, adjacent to your running trails and things like that, that are not designed, in my opinion, are not designed for that purpose, then I think that we need to strongly consider an ordinance that would prohibit people from doing that we can enforce. Does that about cover it, Councilor Gwaltney?
I think it does.
Okay.
Yeah. Could you speak to any of the particulars that you would like to see related to the enforcement? We had discussed, for example, the prohibition of people sleeping in the park, or a prohibition of erecting structures or tents in the park at any time, correct?
Yes.
So it would be preferable that we not put a time limit on that, right? So if someone erected a tent during the day, you would have the ability to enforce that.
That's correct, because many times we're coming across these people in the daytime. There are times when we find these encampments at night, but most of the time, people make notification to the police department during the day and to report something like this, and we go investigate, and we have had numerous occasions where we have found these encampments in the middle of the daytime. And we've had to try to, ask people to move out of these public areas that are designed for, quite frankly, for recreation. We've woken somebody up in the park in an early morning hour, or they've been woken up by residents and they've gotten angry because we're waking them up. The people that are waking them up, your constituents many times, are just trying to use the park as it's designed. I think we probably need to refrain, if possible, from putting a time on it, because like I said, a lot of these interactions that we're having with these folks are during the daytime.
Yeah. So we will, give me 1 second.
Yes, sir.
So we will, in addition to that, related to erecting structures, so for sleeping, we'll put a definition on time limits for that, because in case, someone is in the park on a blanket in the spring, taking a nap, we don't want someone to report them, being neighbors, that is.
Right.
Are you good?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, in reference to the cars, we have had some significant problems with folks sleeping in their cars at various places. I think the library that comes to mind, the Edgewood Business District, I know the district there, we had repeated problems with an individual who would repeatedly sleep in their car overnight and disturb residents and or merchants that are trying to conduct business down there. So, I think it might be important to talk about that being included in the ordinance as well.
Okay.
It's a possibility.
All right, thank you for that report. We appreciate the support. So we'll move on to, if there's feedback. So in the vein of making sure that we're kind of giving everybody an opportunity to speak, we'll limit, I guess, people to maybe 2 minutes or so, within reason. So if you want to come up and give us your name and your address.
There's a clarifying question. We're using the word encampment. I'm Brian Tanner. I live at 314 Lejeune Way. I've had my fair share of encounters. I'm sure everybody in this room has. But nonetheless, we're talking about encampments where we're talking about specific tents. I think we need to think broader than that. If we come across somebody sleeping on one of the benches in the park at 8 o'clock at night when it's dark, I think that we should consider that an encampment. Just because they haven't thrown a tent up over themselves, but they decide to lay down at 8 o'clock at night with all their possessions, and they're going to be there for the rest of the night. I think that should also qualify as an encampment and not just restricted to, because what we don't want to do is handcuff
100%.
our police officers. And we're here having this conversation. We should make this such a broad law that it makes it almost impossible for anyone to sit there and sleep on a bench overnight, or be at our kids' school like happened on Sunday with all their possessions. The kids are out there playing around in the schoolyard, where the parents send their kids to play, with some form of security. They feel like their kids are secure at the schoolyard.
Yeah, so to your point, Mr. Tanner, that would be what we are intending for this. The second part of that would be, there would be no structures allowed, but you would also not be allowed to sleep. We just have to pick the time, whether it's 8 o'clock or there's 9 o'clock, or we would also need the park board's agreement, since they would officially set those time limits. So we would definitely define a time frame. So if someone shows up and they hop on a bench, they don't have to have a tent. We would still capture them underneath this ordinance.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because we
Yeah,
were talking about
100%.
specific structures, and I don't want that to be written into this rule, and then all of a sudden, these guys are like, well, you have 10, I couldn't ask them to leave.
Yeah, yeah, and I was wanting him to finish, so that's why I asked you to hold on 1 second, but I probably expressed through that commentary to get to you.
Now, Chief Ross, is trespassing at the schools is any time the school's not in? Is there, that's not true?
No, sir. The person would have to be trespassed by a representative from the school board in the presence of a police officer for them to actually be arrested for trespassing.
Well, and I'll add one thing too that I think is very important. You know, as things occur in the city, you see something suspicious, or someone that you believe is breaking the law, or presenting, you know, a public safety challenge. It needs to be called in. We have to call these in to, I assume, the non-emergency line, or 911. Just 911, capture both of them. So that we can have data collected. Was one of the best things that we can do is report that stuff, so that we can then have data points. You guys can respond to resolve the problem. And I believe you guys have done a great job of that. I've witnessed one that I called in on a Wednesday 2 weeks ago. Within 5 minutes, 2 officers were there having a discussion with the individual.
I have a question.
Yes.
Shannon Jarman, 305 West Homewood. The incidences that I'm concerned about with my 10-year-old riding his bike home from Edgewood is the fellow in the creek bathing who turned out to be a pervert. And then he asked me if he could go to Edgewood Creamery after school, and I said no, because there's some fellow down there showing his stuff. Does this ordinance help you and the police department keep my child safe with those specific incidents?
Yes, I think it does, at least indirectly it does, because if we discourage people via an ordinance from sleeping in Homewood, then consequently they're going to be here less and less. If we allow them to continue to build camps here, take over properties, you know, we've had abandoned businesses even where they have set up camps, and do the things that I described earlier, then we're going to further, I believe, we would further encourage people to not only camp here, but stay here all day long throughout every day. Right now, I think the vast majority of our homeless population is sleeping outside of Homewood. And a lot of times they're coming here during the day to loiter for the purposes of begging for money and to do various other things. Maybe try to get an odd job. Maybe try to earn money somehow. The incidents that you're talking about in particular, though, there are other statutes that we can utilize to the second example that you made. There are statutes right now that are enforceable that we can utilize and have utilized to combat something like the second example that you made. The person in the creek, there's no law violated that I've been made aware of. There's no ordinance that was violated that I've been made aware of in that case. And just because somebody is a registered sex offender does not put them in violation of the law. And we have to be careful. We can't target somebody because of their status. I cannot have my guys and girls stop somebody, try to arrest somebody, take somebody into custody because they're a registered sex offender, or we perceive them to be homeless, or whatever else, whatever other kind of status we can put on them. We are sworn to uphold the law, but we have to be cognizant of people's constitutional rights, and we're not going to violate people's rights. We're going to do everything that we can do to keep this community and every neighborhood here safe. But what we're really looking at here is people's behavior, not their status. People's behavior dictates many times us having an interaction with them to begin with. And if we find that behavior to be in violation of the law, then we'll take the appropriate action. But we're not going to have interactions with people just because they have a certain status. We have to be very careful about how we proceed in those types of cases.
It's there an officer that handles mental health type?
Every officer handles mental health. We don't have a problem recognizing mental health problems. I'm gonna tell you that right now. We deal with people that are mentally ill in some form or fashion every single day. We deal with people that are addicted to many different substances every single day. We have zero problems recognizing those things. Now, do we have enough resources to help people like that? That might be another question. It might be a better question. We try our best to when we're dealing with people like that, and I'm going to use the example that we had after the parade. What was that, Thursday night? We had a call right along the lines of what we're talking about. We responded like we always do, made contact with that individual that we were called to make contact with, discovered immediately that he had mental health issues, called the fire department responded, recognized the same thing, and then got that person transported to a mental health facility to get them help. So we're going to do that every time that we can, because ultimately it helps everybody. It helps you, it helps the person that we're dealing with directly, it helps the community as a whole to take those people out of the environment that we found them in, the caller that was complaining about that person, and then get them to resources that might help them so much so that they never come back and get the police called or the fire department called again because of their behavior or because of their needs. So that's what we're currently doing. We're recognizing the needs of these people that we're dealing with, regardless of what the situation is. And I want to assure you that your police department, as well as your fire department, I'm speaking for Chief Broadhead, but we don't have any problem recognizing mental illness and other things that we deal with on a daily basis.
Right here. Yeah.
Please.
You capture the
sign in,
names?
please.
Yeah, just one of our requirements is we have to capture the names and addresses, so.
Oh, was that you?
I just need clarification.
Yeah, go ahead and let her clarify real quick. Sure.
I was told after that arrest,
It wasn't an arrest.
or after he was taken to a mental health evaluation, that he was on probation, and that his probation officer would be taking him to jail. Is that correct?
I'll have to check on that. That has not been communicated to me. All I know is that night he was not witnessed violating the law. There was a complainant that made a report, and that complainant was instructed, if they felt so, that they could go and talk with the magistrate about potentially signing a warrant or obtaining a warrant for his arrest. I'm not sure if that's happened or not. I don't believe it has, or I probably would have heard about it. If the person was on probation, there's a very good chance that their probation officers will be made aware of it, and it's up to them as to what they do about that, not up to the police department.
Excuse me, ma'am, will you state your name?
I'm Jamie Pierce. I live at 1602 Oxmoor Road.
Jamie Pierce.
I
Pierce.
just wanted to provide more context, and I don't think there's come out.
We'll come to you next.
Yes, that'd be
Just
great,
let
because
us
it's a
know your
follow-up to
correct.
this
Yeah,
stuff.
so Chief Ross, I know we've had a few conversations about this, and you've shed some light on basically state law and federal law and statutes that have been struck down. So loitering for the purposes of illegal drugs or prostitution, those sorts of things, you guys have the ability to make an arrest with, correct?
Yes.
But there was a case you were.
Loitering for the purposes of begging for money is a state statute. And I don't know if struck down is the right verbiage. I would probably defer to the city attorney. There has been some
Declared
precedent.
unconstitutional.
It's been declared unconstitutional, Mike, is that correct?
Restricted, but not completely unconstitutional.
So, according to how I've been advised about that state statute, it makes it to where officers are not able to arrest people for loitering for the purposes of begging for money, which is what you see a lot at the end of exit ramps and so forth, when somebody's standing there with a sign in their hand asking you for money. That a federal judge has declared that is an infringement on someone's right to free speech. Does that sound reasonable,
Correct.
Mike? So, we're no longer enforcing that statute. But we can arrest people for loitering for the purpose of prostitution and/or drug activity, and we have.
Sure. Yeah, I just thought that was important, probably.
Or
for
any other
everybody.
state statute, criminal trespass. And back to you, Mr. Brandt. I should clarify that if they're on the school property that's not fenced in a manner to keep them out, and there's no signage saying no trespassing, then like I said, they're not in violation of criminal trespass. If they're on property that is fenced in a manner to keep people out, and there is signage, then they would be in violation. So I wanted to clarify that. But a lot of the school grounds are not fenced totally, and people can walk around them and exercise, whatever, and commonly do. It doesn't actually put them in violation of criminal trespass unless a school representative were to come out there and say, hey, Chief Ross, I want to trespass this person in your presence because they've done this, that, or the other, we don't want them here. Then they could be in violation of that statute.
Yeah, so.
Can you give us your name and
Yep,
address?
my name is Matt Ayers, 1602 Oxmoor Road, Jamie's husband. I think it's one thing, I wanted to say, I agree with your statement that I think it's important that we not tie language to like encampment, right? You mentioned sleeping or, on a park bench after hours. Like, the problem is the ordinance needs to address even people coming in, and I understand that's challenging. You mentioned yourself even that you believe a lot of our homelessness are people coming into the city, not actually sleeping here, but just coming in. So that's important, and I think a distinction that needs to be made as far as how do we define encampment, as far as a tool that we can use to push these people out. But then also it's important for everyone in this room to understand exactly what happened to my wife Thursday afternoon, which was a homeless man who in fact is homeless, that this was confirmed, followed her across Oxmoor Road into our back alley, accosted her, attempted to grab at her, and was closer to her than I am now. Proceeded to then follow her to our doorstep, even closer than we are now. And if it wasn't for, this was such a blessing, if it wasn't for a good Samaritan to see something that looked out of the ordinary, turn the corner at that exact time, who knows what would have happened or what his intent was, right? He had a spoon on him, he had batteries, he had condoms. Okay, and so these are the people that are coming into our community, and we've heard about people bathing in the creek, we've heard about exposing themselves, right? Do we know if these people have encampments anyway, or is this the example of coming in to the city from somewhere else? And then what is the city's response to that if the encampment issue is not actually the root problem? So is that, like we see on our campuses around the state and the country, like a police station, like one of those public safety monitors, like spitballing here, but what's the answer? Because I don't think the ordinance, yes, maybe indirectly it does help, but if, again, these people are coming from outside, the ordinance doesn't solve the problem. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's cool.
Well, I don't know, sir, I don't know that there is a singular solution. Sure. Even in addition to the ordinance that we're talking about, and I think we clarified that this ordinance is not going to just address encampments with a structure or a tent, but it's probably going to prohibit or have language in it that might prohibit sleeping in general.
Correct. And
throughout the city.
Parks,
and again, I know that doesn't, and I'm sorry, I didn't realize that's who I was talking to earlier. I'm sorry that happened to you. And I hope my officers responded and were professional and helpful as much as they could be.
Yes.
But please understand, if we don't witness a violation that occurs in our presence like that, we can't take police action. We can't take enforcement action unless it's a felony. In this case, it was not what was reported to us, but I hope you've conferred with a magistrate and they have taken those steps. But and because when things like that happen, first of all, I appreciate you letting us know that it happened, because we need to know about that so that we can have more officers in the area in the future when we have big gatherings like that. And I know we did have officers in the area. Unfortunately, they weren't directly with you that evening, but it helps me plan for the future when we have events like that. Maybe we do need to have additional staffing to help prohibit or prevent things like that from happening again in the future to our residents. But again, I'm not sure that there's a singular action that the city council can take. or the police department can take to prevent things like that from happening. And the simple fact is, it can happen to any of us at any given time. And sometimes the person that you have that interaction with, they may be homeless, and then sometimes they're not. And I want the police department to treat everybody the same. When somebody violates the law in Homewood, we don't need to distinguish necessarily between what their status is. I want us to treat them fairly and treat them by the law and how the law says we can treat them in terms of enforcement actions that we take. But again, I want to stress, and I think we put a public service announcement out a week or two ago because of some incidents we were having about your role as a citizen. When you're the victim of a crime, you can go and see our magistrate. You can go and swear out a warrant for somebody's arrest. And the process is very, very similar to what our officers do in the event of a misdemeanor crime. When officers make an arrest on a misdemeanor crime, they have to go to the magistrate, they have to hold their right hand up and swear that that's what happened. And then the magistrate decides whether or not, if there's enough probable cause to issue a misdemeanor arrest warrant for that person. They do so, and then that person has a court date. And the person that holds their hand up and says, yes, this happened, they have to go and testify to that fact. Just like you would be required to do that if you bring charges against somebody that commits a misdemeanor violation against you. So, and I want you to do that. I want you to know that you have that ability to help us enforce the law and to help us make the community safer by virtue of pressing charges against people when they commit a violation against you or your family members. That's important for you to know that you have that ability within the law and how to do that, how to exercise that ability. If you ever have any questions about that, I would be happy to talk to you personally. Or I would direct you to our magistrate, Laura Roberts, and she could talk to you about how to do that and what the legal process is.
Well, and then maybe
Yes, sir, that's a great point. I do have 3 extra officers or 3 additional positions in the budget that we'll be voting on very soon. So obviously the more police officers that the police department has, I feel like the better we can protect our citizens. And that's what we're intent to do. So hopefully that will be what is granted when the budget is approved, and we'll put 3 new police officers to work, and we'll be up to a total of 90 sworn police officers in our city.
And Chief, 2 of them are going to be on the trail full-time on bikes?
Yes, ma'am. That was the plan, to have a bicycle unit that would be, one of their main areas of responsibility would be to patrol the trail. That currently we're at a bit of a loss as to how to do that because of vehicle restrictions and so forth. It's not an easy thing to take motorized vehicles down there and patrol that trail, and it's sort of intrusive. But yes, that is the plan for 2 of those 3 officers, those new positions.
Chief, can you clarify for everybody where Laura is, her hours, days that can go by? And where she is?
Our magistrate, Ms. Laura Roberts, is at 310 West Valley Avenue, the municipal court building, which is in the same building as the police department. West Valley Avenue at the corner of Bagby Drive. And I think Laura's hours are probably 8 to 4, 8 to 5. I'm not sure. That's usually normal business hours, but you can call her and make an appointment as well if you need to see her, beyond those hours. She has a staff as well that can speak with you as well and address your needs.
And
Another question.
the court's information should be listed on the city website as well as the department, so you can find it there. And Mr. Wallace will work on maybe putting something on the main page, so while it's prevalent right now, it can be easily accessible.
My understanding is that the new part of the Lakeshore Trail that backs to like Walmart and Sam's, that's Birmingham.
The trail itself is all home.
Okay, so that's great. So then, it's clear that there's an encampment, back in that area.
That's unincorporated Jefferson County.
Okay.
If you're coming from the parking lot and you go to the right, it's
exactly.
unincorporated Jefferson County.
Okay, and so then what is the workflow when a resident, reports that encampment and, has to rely on another municipality to fix that issue? We've reported it several times, just us, it's been months. So how do we handle that as a city?
Yeah, I mean, we reach out to our neighbors a lot, our law enforcement partners at the county and at Birmingham PD. Sometimes we get cooperation. Sometimes maybe they're too busy or something's going on where they can't respond, but usually the way that's handled, when they don't come in and do their job, we do it for them.
What's that threshold for us to do it for? Like 4 calls, 7 calls, an assault?
It's, let me just say that we handle those problems that are in and around, when we can, as much as we can, we handle those problems in and around our city limits.
Well, and Chief Frost, a good example of that interdepartmental cooperation would be the encampment that was above, I forget the name of it's the old Salvation Army facility on Lakeshore that's now a church. You guys worked with the county, went in and took care of a long-standing encampment up there as a kind of a joint task force. Can you just give a little bit of detail on that and how you guys work together?
We've done that numerous times. You know, technically it's not in our city limits, it's in unincorporated areas, but we have good working relationships with all of our federal and local law enforcement partners. And from time to time, we do have to combine with them, like in a situation like that. Join forces and take care of a problem, like you've reported to. This was a big encampment that Councilor Gwaltney is referring to, where it required a lot of people, a lot of resources. But I guess I'm trying to answer your question that when somebody calls us about a problem, we're going to do our very best to handle it. Even when we don't necessarily get the cooperation or levels of cooperation that we might want sometimes.
And I will say, to Andy's point, we had a situation back in early August or mid-August where there were some folks hanging out in an area of unincorporated Jefferson County right across from the Palisades that's actually, it's right adjacent to our neighborhoods and several business owners who have businesses right there. And the police department responded immediately. I think I texted you, and within an hour, officers had gone over and dispersed the folks that were there. So I think they always are so responsive anytime I've ever reached out. And like you said, y'all have good working relationships, but y'all usually take care of things when things need to be taken care of.
And you got one behind you.
You're next. Mr. DeMarco.
Am I next?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I think it was on this.
Paul DeMarco, 111 Edgewood Boulevard. Andy, first I want to thank you for bringing this attention, because I think, I'm just going to speak for a lot of folks, they can say, everybody feels this is a huge issue and no one's been paying attention to it, or been downgrading some of the victims, including the one sitting right there, that this is not an issue. It's a serious issue to the victims. So thank you for bringing this. But 2 points, my understanding, I've been here for 30 years. This is the worst I've ever seen, and I'll let the chief speak to it. That I understand this is going on a daily basis. A lot of folks saying this is not a problem. It is a serious problem in our city. And so my question about this encampment law, and I think folks have spoke to it, please pass this encampment law. But can you arrest the folks? But I think we need to look across the state of Alabama to see if there are broader laws to address this, because we don't want to wait for someone to get stabbed or pushed in the street. Sex offenders can be kept from going to schools. We need to look at business areas, churches, schools, because I don't think the encampment law is going to address this issue. So I'm glad you're bringing this up, and it needs to be strong enough that, and I would ask the chief, that they can arrest someone immediately. But I think, and I would respectfully request on behalf of everybody that is, I think in this room saying the same thing, is we have a problem here in Homewood. Passing the encampment law is not going to alone fix this. But is it your understanding, and Chief, you want to speak to it? This is the worst. We're having this on a daily basis. I was at church on Sunday morning. We had some. Every single day, there are incidents that need to be addressed. And some folks are trying to just say, we don't have a problem, we don't have a crisis. We have a homeless crisis in the city. And the first way to address is to admit we do have it. Is that your understanding?
Yes, it is. And so to your point about the encampment ordinance, the reason, so initially I put this agenda item on referral because I felt like we needed to address a issue in the park with someone staying there. Also, we've had a variety of encampments throughout the city, and so we're trying to stay in a manner in which we can constitutionally enforce this, very focused, very, in tune with the specific problem. So other ordinances can be brought forth to address other issues more specifically. Because correct me if I'm wrong, attorneys in the room, the whole point of when you have an encampment ordinance or an ordinance that you're trying to ensure can stand the test of a lawsuit or a challenge of some kind is to make sure that it's very directed and pinpointed, very specific solutions, very defined times. So that's kind of what we were thinking with this. And again, I was trying to address a particular issue, and then as things have, I guess, reached a broader fervor lately, the hope was that this ordinance could capture those things. I'm not saying that we can't do that. I think we definitely can take those ideas and channel them into additional ordinances. They would need agenda items for them. We could put those on a referral as early as next week, potentially. But we would need something specific and targeted.
Yeah.
So.
And Paul, I don't think anybody has said that there's not a problem.
Yeah.
Whoever those people are, send them
We've
to
had
us.
victim shame in this room. We have had victim shame. There's two of them sitting right there who've been shamed. For reporting. This is a
Hang on.
Up and acknowledge this, not one, not the mayor or not the councilors, just, yes.
Talk
Okay.
about
All right, listen. We're gonna have decorum, or I'll carry this item over and we'll move on to the next item.
Can we,
Y'all can sidebar this discussion, but we're here. Go ahead, Paul.
I don't know if this is my conversation. We know, you and I know each other for a long time, and I know most of the city council folks. With all due respect, and I'm not, everybody is here tonight because they feel that this has not been addressed seriously by the city leadership. Mama bears in this room are worried about their kids walking to Edgewood Elementary School or to any of the schools. And this is a problem, and all we want, with all due respect, and I've been a lawmaker, I've been there, I've been where y'all been, is to address this in a sincere way, that these mothers feel safe in Homewood.
Okay, so.
A place we've all been. So again, I'm not attacking you, I'm just saying is,
no, I know you're
we're
not.
glad we have a meeting.
Right.
But we don't feel like folks are taking it seriously. We have a huge problem, and I need people to say, the leadership to say, we have a problem in Homewood. Yes. This is part of it, this encampment, but it's not going to be fixed with just this.
Correct, and that's what I just said a minute ago, Paul. So, to your point, I think the majority of people in here can agree that there is a problem that we need to address. This is the first step, right? You know this, you've been in that position.
I have.
Step one. So, like I said, when we put this item on the agenda, it was to address this specific topic.
Yes,
we
sir.
can certainly, I don't think anybody sitting at this table would tell you they're not interested in solutions. So if we have another specific item that we can put on the agenda that will solve a problem, we'll put that item on a referral for Monday, and it will be back in this committee in 2 weeks.
And I
It's
appreciate
that
that.
simple.
I think, but first, I think people need to hear, we have a huge problem in Homewood with homelessness.
We do, but you also have to look at the scale of how quickly it's ramped. I mean, it's been a light problem for probably 2 or 3 months, but it has really taken off in the last 3. We can agree.
No, we just haven't reported it because we don't actually go around.
But that's what we need, it's got to be
Well,
called in.
I will now, but it will tell you it's not easy because of how it's like
Okay.
shamed over it. Business owners.
I'll say, I can assure everybody in the room, we're all on the same page to move forward and find solutions. So let's keep it focused on the agenda items. I'm taking notes so that we can have additional items. I've got a note here to go meet with the school board about how we can make sure that we can trespass people and what their process will be for that. So, as a business owner, can you give us your name and your address?
Yes, hi, Shelley Smith. I live at 1603 Oxmoor Road, where my children love to play football in the front yard, but are no longer allowed to due to my neighbor being attacked. Also, we have 2 businesses on Linden Avenue. We have had several homeless people come and sit out in front of our business. They leave trash, they smoke cigarettes. I ask them to leave. They say, you can't make me. I've had them sleeping behind our business, one that stays open late at night. Our members who come to our business, they've got a key code access. They can stay there until 10 o'clock at night. How is that safe for our people, our clients who are leaving, potentially men or women, by themselves at 10 o'clock at night to walk out to their cars, knowing that I've seen homeless people sleeping in our parking lot? How is that going to be?
Is that on your property?
Sir?
This is on your property,
It
correct?
is.
And they need to be called into the police
So
department.
there's trash, there's litter, there's debris, there's all kinds of other safety issues that we all are aware of. Mainly, and as I see mostly women here, I see a lot of dads too and other business owners, we're concerned about the entire community, not just the ones that set up camp. The trash is one thing, the safety of our children and our families is another. And I'm bringing it to attention because I want to see not only our families and our yards and our our piece of property here in Homewood protected. I wanna see the businesses. I don't want to see our businesses suffering, people turning their eye away from our businesses, because yeah, I've got a homeless guy who's sitting out front, Peaches to be exact, who also, I had to pull a knife out of my purse mid-May when he first started showing up here, because I sat out near Real and Rosemary at Urban Cookhouse with my daughter at 8:30 at night, and he came over to me and I had to have a knife in hand. I did not report it, and that was my problem. Because I didn't think that was worth reporting. I thought if he came any closer, I'm gonna have to fight this man, and he's a big dude. Sorry, Peaches, he had his gold glittery outfit on, but still, it brought fear to my daughter and me. Now my daughter says I can't go outside to get the mail, because what if Peaches walks by? What if the guy that attacked Jamie is out there? My children, who are 7 and 10, are aware of the violence. So how do you think every other adult that isn't here feels? I just want to express, as business owners, how is that gonna affect our business long term? We pay plenty of taxes to be in Homewood, you
I have a
guys.
business also in downtown Homewood. We need a police walk by every single day, a presence in the area.
We used to have a gentleman who rode a bike, and he would come and stop by our
Once a month.
businesses, and he would check on us. We did become buddies with him, he'd come and see us after lunch, but I miss that presence of just knowing there's somebody with eyes on our city constantly. And I appreciate you guys, and I'm glad that y'all are looking at adding more people, but I don't think that's gonna solve the amount of things that we are personally witnessing.
Can I just speak to your point that you made about your place of business? Where's your business?
We have 2 on Linden Avenue, Pebblehurst, and across the street as well.
Did you call the police when those people were trespassing?
Unfortunately, no, we just kind of shooed him off after, it was Peaches and then another gentleman who I have not seen in a while, which is a good thing, but, the gentleman that was sleeping behind there, I was up there cleaning one night after we had an event, and it was about 11 o'clock, and I walk out to my car, and he was there, and he's sleeping in the trees, over in the shrubs, and I told him, I said, you have to leave, and he said, no, and turned around. I called my husband, by the time my husband got there, he was gone. However, that could have been a totally different story.
Yeah,
That could have been me walking in the door.
what I would like to suggest, and this goes for everybody in here, when you have an occurrence like that, when somebody's in violation of the law, we don't need a city ordinance to combat that person, especially these people that are what I would like to call repeat offenders almost. You mentioned one by name. When you have an interaction with somebody like that, and you're repeatedly having interactions with somebody like that, I want you to call us, and I want you to be willing to, like I was talking about the school a minute ago, you can trespass that person in a police officer's presence, and then when they refuse to leave that very day or that night, they can be arrested on the spot. When they come back the next day, you call us and say, hey, the guy trespasses, he's back on my business property again. We can call and respond and take them into custody immediately for violating that statute, that state statute. So I want to encourage you, if you own a business, if you own a home in Homewood, and you're having problems like she just mentioned, you have that at your disposal. You can call us at any time, night, day, in the middle of the night. We will respond. We will make a report, in this case for criminal trespass, and then we will take the appropriate action by law that we can take, which is what I just described. So, and that doesn't, that's easily done.
And I think that we didn't realize how easily that would be done, because as she was mentioning, and as probably many of you have felt, we didn't want to just call the police to be like, hey, there's a guy sitting out here, he's smoking all day long and leaving litter, have fun. Because I know that y'all do have very life-threatening and important things to handle. However, it's starting to impact us closer and closer truly to our homes and our families, and that's just where
Our doorsteps.
most of us are concerned. Yes, doorsteps.
And Chief Ross, can you elaborate on the increased patrols that y'all been doing in the neighborhoods as well? And we can add businesses, I'm sure they're part of that list already.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Since we've been getting these types of calls, these types of reports, we have increased our presence in Edgewood in particular, because we do seem to have an increase in the frequency in which we're dealing with these individuals in the last few months for some reason. So we have increased our presence there. I hope you've noticed it. If you haven't, I hope that you will, because we're going to continue to do that. And we have had numerous interactions with this contingent of the population that we're talking about. And when we have those interactions, like I mentioned earlier, oftentimes they end in arrest because of things like you're talking about, and because of things like you guys experienced, or the people that experienced the person that we're calling Peaches in Edgewood with indecent exposure charges. So oftentimes they do end in arrest. And if they don't end in arrest, what I like to see them end with is us getting those people out of that environment and into a place where they can get help for whatever problem that they're having. which those places are not in Homewood. They're in Birmingham. But having said that, I want you to know that my officers are not at liberty to go pick somebody up at random because they feel like they need services, they need help, and make them get into their car and take them somewhere out of Homewood. We can't do that. If they want to ride, we can take them to these places. But what we run into a lot of times is this. Like we found a bed for the gentleman that was in the creek at the foundry, which is not easy to do. We got on the phone, we dealt with him, found out who he was, what he needed, found him a bed, and in the 11th hour he decided, I'm not gonna get in the car with you. I'll take myself there. I'll ride my bike there. So, I'm just gonna tell you this too. Some of these people, they don't want help. Do you understand that? They don't want help. They don't want to go to the Foundry or Jimmy Hill Mission or some of these other places because they have rules there. Okay, so this is a complex issue. Every situation has some differences, and my officers have to be really cognizant of all the factors that I just mentioned and then some with regard to the law and how we can, what governs us when we interact with these folks. Okay?
I want to take and go through, there's a couple of folks that have had their hands up for a while. I know you've had yours up, ma'am, you in the nice blue dress, and Ms. Berkery has had hers. So we'll go across the room to the three of you real quick.
I'm Betsy Goldstein. I live at 1527 Roseland. Lived there all my life. And I just wanted to kind of speak to what I think you were just speaking to, and I don't have an answer for it, but I just want it on record. I want everyone to know that, you know, what happened in the creek that day, it's the reason I think it became such a fever pitch situation is because it has been happening so many times. I mean, I've been on walks with friends with clearly homeless men leaning down to look up my skirt. I mean, they've been in the creek. I see them jumping down in the creek. I don't know where they go because I don't have time to go look. That I'm like, are they in my backyard? Are they coming out the backyard? Are they in the woods by my house? You know, there's so many things that have happened over the years that I haven't reported because some of them don't seem like reportable things like you're saying, like what am I supposed to do? I know that he doesn't live here. I know he's carrying everything he has. I know that I'm sorry, he just doesn't look like he's up to anything good. And I'm sorry if that's judgmental to say that, but you can look at some people and you can know that they have nothing but time on their hands and just idleness, and they're just watching you, and it's unsettling. And I'm sorry that that is a fact, but it's a fact. But it doesn't mean the fact that we haven't reported these things and the fact that we have been seeing it speaks to how we aren't trying to go around and point fingers and accuse people. Like, we're trying to make it work. And I think I was so upset when that happened with my daughter because I just was like, why am I having to deal with this? Why isn't somebody dealing with this? I cannot be the only one who sees this happening. And then when it was made public, which I'm not even the one who made it public, by the way, someone driving by did, because I didn't have time, because I was trying to get to homecoming at Homewood Middle School. Then it was like, the neighbor was the one that was shamed, and I was the one that, that was the bad guy. But then there were so many people emailing me, texting me with all their personal stories, and I think that that's why it became such a hot button thing, because all of us were feeling the same thing, and all of us were too afraid to say it. And too afraid to bring it to attention for the wrath that we felt was coming, which in fact did come. So you can be concerned for this and also have love in your heart for these things, but more than anything, I just have a love for this community. I mean, I love our community and I just want to see it thrive, and that's truly the heart of all of this, and I just want to say that because I feel like now I'm the face of Homewood's homelessness, and I never intended for that to be the case.
Let me just say this. I want you to I want you and every person in here to feel like they can call the police department anytime for any reason. When you need help, I don't want you to feel like that it's not a big deal. I don't want you to assume that it's not criminal, what you're seeing, what you're observing, what you're worried about. Let us do that. Let us respond and determine whether or not we're dealing with a criminal matter, whether or not we're dealing with somebody that needs to be directed to resources. And I want to tell you this, you will never be shamed by a Homewood police officer. You call us, we will never shame you. We're never going to make it public. We're going to come and we're going to serve you because that's what we do. And we're going to interact with that person and we're going to determine whether or not they're in violation of the law or they just need to be directed to some resource. But they will not be left for you to deal with. They will leave one way or the other, is what our goal is in situations like that. So please don't ever feel like that you can't call the police and report something like that.
Hi, Caitlin Pierce, 1152 Iredell Circle. My children, my 12 and 6-year-old were the children that Patrick exposed himself to on the strip. We did call the police. We did the magistrate thing. We did all of that. They were arrested and then they are released and we don't really know where they are. They did come back. I think that's what got them arrested. They came right back to the strip less than 24 hours from when the original incident happened. And I appreciate that you do, but I don't feel super confident that what we're talking about with the ordinance would address that. So you mentioned we need a specific situation. What is the exact process to get a different ordinance or a more specific ordinance that would have addressed a situation like that?
Peaches was back 2 days ago. I had a one-on-one encounter.
So what do you need? I'm sorry, Mr.
That's a weird last name.
Okay, sorry. What do we need to do to?
As he mentioned earlier, it needs to be brought before us, and we need to look at the constitutional ways that we can bring that to the council.
But do I need to schedule a meeting with one of you? Like,
How do we bring that to the
Can we do that tonight?
Yeah.
we're all having to schedule a different meeting or whatever the process needs to be. I just don't understand the process.
So I would lean honestly on the chief for what specific items he needs. Whenever I brought this up, the first phone call I made was to chief. I asked him, what do you need to basically combat, an encampment problem that I perceived us having? And then my second step is to talk to the mayor and the mayor-elect and also the city attorneys to make sure that, what I'm proposing can stand legal challenge going forward. Because the last thing I want to do as a counselor is to propose something that, is going to turn the city into a hotbed for legal activity. So I would say if there are suggestions that are actionable, I'm happy to put that on referral as early as I guess we could put it on for this week. Yeah, it'll be on Monday's referral item. So then it's on the agenda for discussion at the next public safety meeting. I'm looking at Alex because you're standing up like you want to say something, but I do have one more person. If y'all filtered through any of this, the details, and you have concrete recommendations, I'm happy to take those and work on them.
Sure, so a couple of things. One, I don't want anyone to feel shamed about anything. If you have a concern about this city, you have a concern about this city. I have concerns, y'all have concerns, this is one of them. This is why we're all here tonight. This is why we're considering this item. This is why we will continue to talk about this item. This is why the next council, I assume, will continue to talk about this item. These items and these issues. But you should never, ever feel shamed because you are concerned about something that's going on with your family, with your property, with your city. I think the chief is right that there's not sort of a magic bullet that solves everything. I think this is a lot of things that you bring together to deal with these issues. And it's a difficult issue. It's a difficult issue nationwide. And we are confined by the law, and we have to work within those so that we make sure that what we do is enforceable and gives the police every tool that it needs to deal with these issues, but that doesn't put them in a bind by going too far and creating something that's unconstitutional. And so we will look at all these issues as we go through. The encampment was the first one that was brought up. I am happy to talk about any of them. You can always reach out to me. I'm happy to talk, and I suspect that any counselor, old, new, otherwise, is also willing to talk to you about it. Part of, like I said, this is sort of a multifaceted approach because I think it has to be. And part of that is not just dealing with the encampment or the loitering that we can't really do, but it's also dealing with the statutes that we have and the ordinances that we have, both state statutes and local ordinances. we have a lot of those in place that do address a number of these things. There's a reason Peaches was arrested. It wasn't for loitering, right? There's a reason that the police can do those things now. They do have to be told, the police have to be told that because they're the authority to take that action. And there are steps that have to be taken in terms of the magistrate to help them by state law, and so we have to do those things. And so it's important, unfortunately, it's important that everyone does call the police anytime you see something. And what I would say is, err on the side of calling. 100%. Don't worry about, hey, maybe this is nothing. Err on the side of calling, because the police can go out there and, quite frankly, even if that person is, for example, not doing something that is illegal at that moment in time, but they have warrants out for their arrest, well, now the police have got them, right? So there are things that can happen even in those situations, as well as the police just making contact with each of those individuals. That's a good thing, regardless of what the result is. And so I would, again, recommend that everyone err on the side of calling. I know that's what I do. And I think that that is what you all can do individually to help with this, as we are doing what we can from an ordinance standpoint, and the police are doing what they can within the laws of the state of Alabama and the federal government and the city ordinances to try to address this in every way possible, because we want, I think our goal as a council, as a mayor, is to make sure that we are giving the police every tool possible under the law. If there's something that we can do to give them another tool, I suspect that we will do it. I don't have a vote, but I suspect that we will do it. And that's our goal at this point, is to do that. So we are happy to have conversations about what we can do. If you bring things to us, we will talk about those. I can't promise you that we can do what you want done, because again, we are bound by the law. But we will do everything that we can up to that point. And each of those things, along with what we're talking about tonight, the statutes and ordinances that are already in place, the communication between the community and the police department and the council and the other city leadership, all of those things combined can help address this issue. And it is an issue. I can tell you, no one here on the council is saying that it's not. Not a soul is saying that it's not.
Okay, so let's hold on. Let me get to the order we're going through. Mr. Adams, did you?
Just
and
Glenn
then Mr.
Adams, I'm the
Burkery's
city
next.
manager, and I'm pretty new here. I think you know that. There's two things that I really want to make sure everybody understands, and the first one is between now and the next one, so you guys don't feel like nothing's happening, what is the key hours that these are occurring, so we could try to surge manpower?
All day.
Slow down. Midday and?
Morning.
All day?
All day.
I don't even know what to add on to that.
Yeah.
So the other part is just for everybody's understanding, that little jot form thing online, you guys probably don't think it's super relevant, but every one of these issues that you guys said this happened, if you put it in there, I get every jot form. Every single one of them comes to me. They also go to other departments, but I see it and I can start registering. Things have changed and things are going different, and I then understand I can refocus some effort. So I can't do it if I don't know. It's one of those things. But
No,
I would think it would help if you see someone that's homeless and you just have a police officer drive by and maybe speak to them. They're not trying to arrest them, but if they know the police presence is there, you know, someone who you're worried about or nervous about, I think if a police officer comes by, they're gonna, you know, I think that's gonna help in some ways. I mean, you can't just call on everybody you see, but y'all know a lot of, I mean, these are probably a lot of the same people generally that are a problem.
All right, so back to the order we had a moment ago. Mrs. Burkery, Mr. McIntyre, Mr. Thomas. That's the ones I have written down. So Mrs. Burkery. Oh, and fourth.
My son, a 13-year-old son, son was the one that took the video of the encampment with a tent, with trash at the corner of Sterrett and Columbiana, where he scooters, where he rides. And we also know that there have been people that have said, hopefully after tonight, their opinions have changed, that we don't have a problem. And I want to remind y'all that y'all are working for Homewood, but we are Homewood and we are your constituents. And when we say things and we get discarded, we don't have an issue or a homeless problem, that puts mamas really into like flight. Like we get real angry and we're real upset and we want to work with y'all. And that begs the question, Chief Ross, have you seen an increase? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Homelessness.
Of our interactions with the community, the homeless community, the city manager was asking you what time this is most prevalent. We have an activity report that is submitted after every shift. We have 3 shifts per day. Each shift compiles or completes an activity report. I read every one of them 3 times a day. So, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that you're seeing something more frequently than you were previously. We have tried to compile some statistical data. It's a difficult thing to compile because we don't have a call for service that says homeless. We do have a call for service for robbery, burglary, theft, domestic violence, all sorts of other categories, but we don't have a category necessarily that says homeless. But what we can do is we can look at the calls that we do get for a person soliciting, a suspicious person, a person that's criminal trespass, some other calls that can be associated many times with homeless people. So when I look at those calls and I look at my activity reports every day and I compare them to this time last year, there is an increase. For some reason, there's an increase right now and in the last couple of months, few months perhaps. There's an increase of our interaction with these folks. Now, is that increase driven by what you're reporting, perhaps? Or is it an increase for some other reason? We're trying to get to the bottom of that. But to answer your question, just frankly, yes, we are having an increase in activity with these folks.
Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre.
Tyler McIntyre, 1508 Parkside Court. I just want to pair some of the things that have been said, but also point out some things. Like, first of all, we had a tragic shooting at the beginning of the summer. We had a lot of protests. We had some people, I think, that started bringing some national politics into that situation, and perhaps this uptick is because of some of these, things that happen in the Walmart and everything. I mean, personally, I feel like our community is being targeted. I'm just going to throw that out there. I mean, we need some enforcement of the rules, and I would also say, I'm probably thinking I'm speaking for most people, that we want a lot more than an encampment ordinance. I think that we want you to push the envelope because, again, I know plenty of people in this room that are passionate on different ideas, and it's a community, and I think we need that, but you have to have security first. I mean, I cannot express to you how nervous it makes me just walking down the street now, knowing some of these things that have happened, or knowing that my 24-year-old daughter is going to come into town and have dinner with some friends. It makes me nervous. That didn't happen before. I think this is not something that was made up over this summer. This is something that I think a lot of people, I'm hoping you're understanding this is a real issue. I also would hope that people wouldn't want to, we are a bedroom community. We're just one resident community. There's a few businesses here, but we don't have large areas where we can create facilities to help people and all that type of stuff. We just need to secure our neighborhoods. Make people feel safe. It is sad that some mothers feel like their kids can't play outside. What's the point of living here and paying the taxes and paying the property costs that we have? I could go just over the border into another city and I could just pocket a whole bunch of money by selling my house here. I don't do that because this is a wonderful community. We have a phenomenal school system. We have a great environment. I mean, the diversity of this community is, I think, that word's loaded, but I think that's what people like. They like all of it. All the different people they get to experience, all the different foods, all the different interactions. We are a cosmopolitan city. That doesn't mean that we don't create security. And I just want to point it out, because I know there's some other things that people are talking about doing for the homeless. We can't be the cure-all for everything, but first and foremost, guys, please focus on security. And the point I'd like to make to that is just brainstorming here. Heard you talk about unincorporated areas, border areas of communities, and battlefields on type stuff. That's where things happen. That's why these encampments are just across the border. Maybe we could look at some more aggressive tactics, like talk to Jefferson County, be like, we'd like to annex that land. If it's like a seam or something, whatever we need to do to give our law enforcement the ability to, keep the community safe. That's what we need to do. A quick, and the encampment ordinance absolutely needs to happen, but we don't need quick Band-Aids. This needs to be studied, this needs to be evaluated, and we need to be aggressive about it. You can't have vagrancy laws, but, there's certainly things where you can, public safety overcomes the ability for someone to sit there and panhandle. Maybe there's something in these downtown areas where we have all these businesses. My son, every time he was in middle school, would go down to the Strip, like every day, begging me to go to the Strip. That seems like a public safety area to me. I don't know. We just need to think about both, a stick and a carrot. And we can talk about mental health, help, and all that stuff after we figure out how to fix the security problem. It is a problem, and we are being targeted. So, I don't know. That's just my feeling on it.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. Mr. Thomas.
JJ Thomas, 710 Morris Boulevard. I want to say thank you for bringing it up. I think the fact that you're bringing it up and you're taking the time to listen to us shows that you do believe there's a problem. So thank you for that. Councilor Gwaltney, I think you're going to introduce for the record. I just didn't want it to be forgotten that Michelle Smith started a petition. A little under 500 people signed it, asking for city action and a comprehensive ordinance. And just out of respect for everyone who signed it, and Michelle Smith, she is willing to answer questions and talk. She doesn't want to do it, but she's happy to if everyone has it. But I did just want to make sure you introduce that to the record.
I will. And my apologies. We got started and the ball got away from me. Mr. Seegers, I will provide that to you for the record. It's a petition with 500 plus signatures.
It's a petition, and there's a map that just shows this is not isolated to one section of Homewood. It spreads out all the responses by their address so the city council can see.
Thank you for that.
The next thing, Chief, if you would, when I'm done, if you can speak to, I think the questions a lot of people have are, what are the ordinances we have and what are the state statutes that we have? What are the laws that are actually being broken? And then the last thing I'll say is, Councilor Gwaltney, too, it sounds like there's an openness to listening about making a more comprehensive ordinance that addresses.
Yeah, 100%.
Or a different one, sorry,
Yeah.
a different one. That,
any ideas that we can put into play?
yes, so thank you for that. And I think, I'm going to speak for myself, but I think other people agree. I don't think it has anything to do with homelessness as far as, no one looks at a conduct, what happened over here and said, well, where did that person sleep last night? We don't know, we don't necessarily care. I think what we want is an ordinance to address the conduct that is scaring everyone and harming everybody. And I do know just from researching other cities that there are ordinances out there that they have and they have passed that address the conduct that we're seeing in Homewood. And I would just, I sent 11 pages of it. I have no pride of authorship, but those were pulled from Chattanooga. Those were pulled from other cities. Those are case law compliant. Those are constitutional, but they're also more comprehensive, and they address people cussing at kids and near schools, near businesses, harassment, stuff like that. So I would just ask that we at least consider it. If it's unconstitutional, illegal, if you guys can just let us know why. And if Chief Ross, if you don't mind, just at a high level, let us know what is currently illegal.
Well, there's a multitude of state statutes, some of which I've talked about already, but they're misdemeanor offenses, most of them. The indecent exposure that we arrested the person that's been talked about in here several times, Peaches, that's a misdemeanor offense. Has to be committed in the presence of a police officer for a police officer to make an arrest for such. If it's committed in your presence, you can come see the magistrate, which I explained earlier. And that is the process for indecent exposure, harassment, disorderly conduct, criminal trespass, except for the explanation that I gave you earlier when you trespass somebody in our presence. But the vast majority of these misdemeanor offenses have to be committed in our presence for us to make an arrest on the spot. Otherwise, we have to rely on you to come and see the magistrate. First, make a report with us, go talk to the magistrate, you look at the report with the magistrate, and then you get a warrant for that person's arrest. We go serve the warrant, and we take them into custody, like we did the other day. So there's a lot of state statutes, even the loitering statute, like I said. We can arrest people for loitering for the purposes of prostitution, loitering for the purposes of drug activity, and we have. We did that, Wayne, down in the Edgewood Business District not too many months ago with a problem that kept occurring with a homeless person that was in violation of things like that.
If they're impeding traffic.
Yes, that's disorderly conduct. So, you know, I've talked to our magistrate, and yeah, we can't arrest somebody for loitering for the purposes of begging for money because of that state statute. But if they're out in the median or they're out in the roadway impeding the flow of traffic, then it becomes disorderly conduct, and we can make an arrest for that. So there's a lot of state statutes that we can apply in situations, and we have applied them, and we're doing it every day. But it requires us to witness it. A lot of times we are responding to what you are calling us and telling us about, which means oftentimes we don't get to see the same thing you do. We roll up in a marked car, and guess what? They quit doing what you said they're doing. To your point, ma'am, about increased presence, keep in mind that there's a lot of presence we have that you don't know about because they're not in uniform. And we are deploying a lot of our unmarked, a lot of our plainclothes personnel to address these problems that we're talking about tonight. So I hope that answers your question, JJ. But
it did, and maybe if you don't mind, can you benchmark Homewood versus our surrounding cities as far as how are we different, how are we alike in ordinances? Obviously, we're the same with state statute.
Yes, very much the same with state statute and the way that we're enforcing those statutes. The city ordinances, I've looked at a few. I think there are some municipalities around us that have some ordinances like we're talking about tonight with regard to camping and sleeping and so forth. I would have to look a little closer to see if I noticed some other differences, maybe some broader ordinances that have been brought up in here tonight. I would have to do some research and look and see if some of our neighbors have that. But keep in mind, we're having some of the problems that we have that some of our neighbors are not having because of our proximity to Birmingham. That is just a fact of the matter. The resources that are available to these folks that we're talking about are headquartered in Birmingham. So because of that, and because we border Birmingham so closely in so many areas of our city limits, we are going to come in contact with these people, and we do come in contact with these people a lot more than our neighbors to the south of us, or even in Mountain Brook. That's just a fact given our geographic location, I think. But we can look at that. I can talk to, and I have talked to some of my colleagues that are chiefs of police in other places and see if they have any ideas. But I think what I would find out is that we're dealing with this more than they are because of what I just said.
Would you let Councilor Galani know, DC, since he's open to?
Certainly.
Finally.
Hey, I'm Stephanie Datnoff, 1852 Lancaster Road. I haven't heard any other Shades of Hava moms speak. I'm sure there's some in here, but I just wanted to echo everything that a lot of the Edgewood families have shared. We have lived in Homewood for just over 5 years, and I have seen a rapid uptick. We get a front row seat to that stretch between Shades Cahaba, well, to 31. We're right in between Shades Cahaba and Alabama Outdoors. And I do err on the side of caution and call in quite frequently a lot of things that we see. A lot of stories have been covered, but my kids are no longer allowed to play in the front yard within the last year. Just most recently, we were trying to go to the Homewood pool, and a man very clearly on drugs, I don't know where he lives or whatnot, but was coming down the hill from the accounting office there on the corner. We're the third house in from 31, and was going in between the shared driveways of the businesses. And I could not get my kids inside in time. I mean, I did, but he was coming down the hill quickly and seeing things no one else could see and was shouting. And my kids are scarred for life. I mean, my daughter still cries herself to sleep every night, making sure that all the doors are locked because of what she saw that day. And it really, I love Homewood. It terrifies me sometimes, some of the things we see. Walking home, my kids home from Shades Cahaba, a gentleman in front of CVS, I had to explain to my kids why his arms were bloody, and there were all sorts of paraphernalia sitting around him, all of which I have called in, and everybody's been fantastic. But I think when we zoom out, I don't know who mentioned this earlier, my list got shorter and shorter as my hand was raised because you guys have covered a lot of territory and I want to repeat it. But number one, I hope that you hear everybody's hearts. We see them as individuals who also need help. We know it's a two-way street, that they have to want to get help. I think we have the ability to really dive deep into what we can put in our toolbox for our great police staff to better protect us. As you mentioned, if I wanted to sell our house and go live somewhere else where it's a little less safe than Homewood, I feel like used to be. I know it's still safe, but it just feels like it's been really intense for a few months, especially when you're trying to explain it to kids. I would just recommend, in addition to the ordinances and everything that we've discussed, and I don't want to step on any toes, but I've heard recently, I believe with really noble intent, that our friends at the library, who I adore, were there on a weekly basis, but I have seen a change, again, within the last few months to a year, of men sleeping on the benches and trying to walk around to the entrance. And again, I see them as people. I could go into a lot of examples, but not knowing how some of these people are going to respond, I'm learning that they're being fed there, and it's almost like an attraction instead of it, hey, we have donations at where if people feel compelled, they can give food and clothing donations to the fire department or the police department, instead of attracting them where our children are walking in every day. Just as a mom, I need to share that. Not because I don't want my kids to see it. We're very plugged into our faith community and do a lot. We serve a lot. But there are certain places, like walking to and from school, that I don't want to feel like I'm walking through San Francisco, seeing a man passed out drunk and having done a lot of other drugs. And then other residents that are leaving food and clothing out in bags. I get that. I think the intent is really good. But what it's doing is it's teaching them our standard is this will always be here. And so instead, what we could perhaps do is, in safer zones, set that up, if so compelled, for people to come and pick up things that they may need, instead of in the neighborhoods where our kids are, walking to get ice cream. Our kids, my husband is with them tonight, so I can be here. They are in 1st and 2nd grade, and they just have already seen so much in our front yard on Lancaster. And I get that a lot of that has to do with the proximity of where we are. And I have reported it to the police. Unfortunately, I'm thankful that there's more of us where it sounds like it's made its way into Edgewood. But I have seen more outside of my front door window than I would like to explain. So just in closing, I would say, in addition to the ordinances and things that very smart attorneys can write up that I cannot, I would just say that we encourage those that want to have donation pickups, not be at our public library, and not be necessarily at residences. And I know we can't say that to private residences. I think that, again, that's very noble, but maybe what we do as a community, if we said, look, we recognize that this is an issue. If you feel compelled, these are great, safe pickup locations. So in closing, also sharing if we could have some extra police patrol, and I know everybody's begging for you to come to their street, but as our kids are going to and from school, we love our SRO. He's helping with carpool, but as far as these people that are coming in from, as you mentioned, Birmingham, up 31, and these kids are being dispersed, that does make me nervous. So that's a bug I would put in your ear as well, that we have an increased police presence around our schools before, but specifically after school. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Very good comments. Sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is not politics, I swear. I'm just speaking, it's okay. I honestly, please give me 30 seconds, please. Please. Just as a neighbor and a person, just give me 30 seconds. I don't care if anybody votes for me tomorrow at all. I swear to God. Please. Okay? 30 seconds.
Respectful.
I wrote an email that sucked. I was frustrated and I wrote a terrible email, and I own it now. Okay? I'm just telling, I own it. I don't care what happens tomorrow. I just want to take a second to apologize to the people in the room who are obviously hurt. You never have to change opinion about me. Since I've been mentioned 20 times in this meeting, I would just like to take the opportunity to say I'm sorry face to face. to everyone in the room, and that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
May I just say that all
Ms.
the
Hart?
shaming, Carolyn Kerr, 121 Windsor Drive. Since Mr. Manzelli opened that up, I would just like to say that all the public shaming did not occur from this committee or from our council. It was from his followers.
Okay. Thank you. I would like to keep the discussion focused on the topic at hand.
Just remind the council that we don't have the luxury of time on this issue. So I've heard it, well, let's talk about it at the next meeting. Let's bring it up on an agenda. Our kids are outside today and tomorrow, and we need the city leaders of Homewood to do something about this yesterday.
And I agree with you 100%.
You know, it's one thing to talk about it, then we're all back here next week talking about it, but my kid's outside playing right now.
And I'm in the same boat that most of the parents are in here are in the same. I'm in the same boat as you because my wife will not let our children walk to the strip either. So I truly empathize with everyone. However, there is hang on, let me finish. There is a process we have to follow. When I said, okay, well, I can't change state law, right? So it has to go on referral, which will be on Monday's council, and then it will be back in this committee a week later. I can't change that. I cannot make it go faster than that. If I could, I really would. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, City Attorney, but I mean, I'm with you in the sense that the faster we can move, the better. That's why I literally said I'm open to any agenda item and ideas that we need to put on there to make this go away faster. 100%. But it's not the council slow playing. I promise you, Ms. Jarvis. Correct.
I have a question, not a comment. Michelle Smith, 309 Berkeley. I think that the police presence is going to help a lot of this. That is one thing that I think that when there's a presence there, they won't come over as much. So the ordinance, yes, are going to help. But as far as the right now, I know you said that there was in the budget to hire 3 more policemen. When? Like, when would that happen? Like, it's something October 1st of next year?
No,
This year? Okay. Okay. So that's good. I mean, I think that's going to help a lot.
Well, and
it has to pass.
I think it'll pass. Can't speak for anyone else, but I'm sure it'll
So the police
pass.
has already passed committee, it's just a matter of the formality of the council approving the entire budget. I would not expect that there are going to be any problems. If there were, they would have already come up.
And it was unanimous out of committee as well. So I feel like I missed somebody, but you had your hand up for a moment.
I just had a question about, sorry, I'm Beth Huber at 11210 Broadway. I have a question about the ordinance with the encampment related to the hours. So are you saying that there'll be certain hours, like from 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. or?
So we'll define, and lawyers and police chiefs, correct me when I speak errantly. The plan is that you can never erect a tent or a structure of any kind intended for sleeping in the park. However, in discussing this, and we can change if we need to, that we would not prohibit sleeping during the day in the sense of like, and we can, like I said, we can revise that just in case someone was in the park. We don't want, in the spring if someone's laying on a blanket to be, and one of the folks in the room also mentioned that, they may have fallen asleep in the park just enjoying the weather. But that we would define that as basically there's no sleeping allowed in the park between a certain set of hours, most likely dusk and dawn. But I wanted to confer with the Parks Board because some of that will need to be approved by them as well to make sure they're comfortable with the time frame. I don't want to say 6 p.m. to 10 a.m. because they may say, no, we're not going to do that.
Excuse me, I've already started that conversation with Mr. Squires. He doesn't anticipate there's a problem, but we just need to come up with the hours. So I don't anticipate that the park board will be a problem, but just by state law, the park board is the one that's got autonomous authority over the park. So we need them to mirror what we're doing as a formality, which I don't expect will be a problem.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Mr. Squires is very supportive. And he's been taking actions that we haven't seen to address the issues in the park, so he's been doing a great job. But in addition to that, we don't want people sleeping in vehicles. We've had a couple of instances that Chief mentioned where people have been sleeping in vehicles in various parts of the city, and they'll address it, they'll move. They'll address it and they'll move. So we're trying to give him a tool to prevent that from occurring because the same thing occurs with that community. Is the car sleepers talk to other car sleepers and like, oh, I'm sleeping here, no one's noticed. So we're trying to make sure we capture that as well.
I guess I was thinking about what the gentleman shared about on the weekend at the school and school kids run into potentially someone that maybe is on school grounds that has, maybe they're just sleeping there, but it's in the middle of the day and using that as their.
So the school, correct me, Chief, But the schools, they would need to report that as trespass because they can't be on the grounds if they're declared to be trespassing, correct?
That's right, they would need to be trespassed in an officer's presence by somebody from the school board or a representative from the school. I don't think the ordinance that we're talking about would cover something like school property. Am I right about that, Mike?
We could write it.
We could.
But you have the school board's got, our school representatives tell them to get off the property trespassing.
And then Mr. Lane.
Every incident we talked about tonight is covered by
state
state
statute,
code.
right?
State. It's gotta be reported in the right way.
Right.
I thought Mountain Brook's ordinance had defined parks as all sorts of different things.
Yeah, Mountain Brook's ordinance was adopted the last, 6 months ago?
Yes, that's new.
But I mean, I would think that you could do that with the.
I think what Mr. Waltney has talked about, and what I think we're all talking about, is all public property.
Yep.
Not just parks. So just so we're clear, the
Maximum
reason we're
enforcement.
talking about parks is just because of the frequency that has come up as compared with other property, and because the park board will need to mirror what we're doing. But the ordinance that we're talking about is all public property.
Then that would cover the school scenario that we're talking about. Is that
For
right?
camping.
For that, yes.
As far as presence on school property, the school board would need to trespass them, so we then could arrest them.
Yeah, but what I guess just to clarify what I'm saying, maybe we're talking past each other, is just if there's a gentleman on Saturday morning who is sleeping, who's laying down, clearly reclined, got his, stuff there, would this encampment ordinance allow them to act without getting, Dr. Hafner to come down?
Sure. So the way that, what we have discussed tonight is two different things. No encampment any time of the day.
Yeah.
Sleeping, because we have to treat everyone the same. We can't selectively enforce, obviously. So if there's someone asleep on public property and it's not causing a problem, it's just someone that's out there, laying down in the grass on a spring afternoon, that's why it was the sleeping separate from an encampment was given hours overnight. So to the extent that someone fell either with an encampment or in those hours overnight, the school would not need to come out. If it was not within those times, then there would still be a trespass issue that would fall under a different ordinance, and that would require.
What about sleeping bags? Are y'all gonna allow people? That happens in West Homewood. That's why I bring it up. They sleep along the crease where the water course is, and it dips down about 8 inches, and they will line up 3 or 4 sleeping bags.
I think we can define encampment as in whatever way we want to, as long as we are staying within the confines of the constitutionality, which requires us to be somewhat specific, at least. But I think that that's something we can address within the definition of encampment.
So, Mr. Kendrick, if the schools post a sign at their grounds or whatever common entrance they have that says no trespassing allowed,
Yeah,
would that allow?
And it has to be fenced. Is the other key to that.
Sign
and fence.
We can capture, there's a good portion of their areas that are fenced.
Those can be covered by signage.
Okay, and so they would not need a representative.
Open areas gotta be trespassed by somebody.
What about, for example, at Shades Cahaba, someone wants to use the track? I mean, that's, it is fenced. Does that?
Right. So
so now you're choosing.
Right, you're right. So if someone is inside the fence with the sign up that says it's trespassing to go on there, but they're doing something.
They're recreating.
They're not
Nobody's
doing
gonna call
anything.
the police on them though. Like,
I'm sorry?
I mean, no one's gonna call the police on somebody that's out there clearly exercising. Nobody's gonna call the police on somebody that is on a picnic blanket sleeping. I mean, I think we're trying to narrow this ordinance to a degree where it prevents the police from doing what we need them to do. I've been a resident for over 35 years. I have never seen a problem like we have in Homewood right now. And I see others who have lived here for over 35 years who have come back to this city because we believe in this city, because it used to be a safe city. I think we have to look hard. Why do the homeless think they can come here? Why do they think they are welcome to set up camp here? Why do they think they can be in front of CVS clearly using drugs? What about our city makes them think that that is okay? I want to see more police. I want them to know they are not welcome in Homewood. I want them to stay in Birmingham where they have all the resources that they need to deal with the mental health. I don't want them to see them in our city, because it is not only a problem, it's going to become more of a problem when we have something more tragic than just barely touching the shoulder. I want something done, and it needs to be brought.
Can I ask a question? What, do neighborhood watches work very well? Does anybody?
What we're trying to do.
I don't know, that's the reason why I say, I see the signs up, but you never hear anything about it. Are you the neighborhood watch for your area? And I live over in
Sometimes.
West Homewood, and I've got some businesses in Edgewood. Now, I keep my eyes open in Edgewood. West Homewood, I may do it too.
Yeah, I know you police Edgewood well. The police know me very well. I call a lot. Sir.
Just a quick question. Daniel Stevens on Sept Road. You said the police have been present.
Do I have to pay
to arrest somebody?
I usually Wayne Harris.
Does that,
Yeah.
does that allow you to arrest?
Yes, we can present evidence like that to the magistrate and try to pursue charges, and we have. But a lot of these things are occurring, like the other night. I don't believe there was any video evidence to provide to the magistrate in a case like happened to.
I'm just thinking a lot of homes out here.
And just to be clear, the police can come arrest if someone speaks to what happened, even if the police weren't there, to the magistrate.
Okay.
So it could be either or.
Okay.
Yeah, the indecent exposure case is a good example. I mean, we got a report of that happening. We responded. We made contact with the suspect, albeit a few blocks from where he was reportedly doing that. But when we made contact with him, he was not in violation of the law. So all we had at the time was a report from a witness who said that he did these things to violate the law, in this case, indecent exposure. So what we had to direct that person to do is we made a report based on what they told us. We had to direct that person to go see the magistrate in order to swear out a warrant against that person for violating the law. Once that happened, then we were happy to go arrest that person because we had a warrant in hand. I can't go arrest somebody for an instance like that unless I have a warrant in my hand or I witness it. I witness it happening, the violation happening. So that's what makes these things so difficult, like I said, because you guys are witnessing all these things and you're calling us most of the time, not all the time. You're calling us, you're making a report, but most often you have to come do your part and swear to a magistrate for us to be able to put that person in jail where they belong. And then we hope the rest of the criminal justice system does its job and they stay in jail for a certain amount of time, and maybe that deters them from ever coming back to Homewood and doing it again. That's the hope. Doesn't always work that way, but that's what we hope happens.
But that's key, because if we get a call and you guys interface, and interface is typically uncomfortable, right? Or not say uncomfortable, it's unwanted. So at least that will hopefully drive behavior, which is what we're going to do to get them out of our city. I believe I saw Mason, Williams, and then Berger, and Ms. Herb. Sorry. Did you have something? Did I see your hand up?
Earlier, but it's been covered. But I did want to say, I was at the chamber meeting last week where Chief Ross and Chief Broadhead spoke, did an excellent job. Our crime is way down, other than this particular issue. And it's not a new issue, okay? This council's been in place for 5 years. It's an indictment on you guys. It took all of us to come here tonight to get this done. It's an indictment on you. It really started over 3 years ago, if you want to know the truth. Because the World Games came and Woodfin flushed them out of downtown. And this year Woodfin ran for re-election and flushed them out of Georgia Wood Park. So they're not all camping here, but they're ending up here, to Rachel's point, because we don't deter them. The word's out, this is the place to hang out. And this is, Peach has been arrested twice in 2 weeks. I ran into him 2 nights ago. He's not shamed at all. He's proud to be here. No one's stopping him. We need this, whatever the law will allow, we need the strongest ordinance possible in this state because of our proximity to Birmingham and what's going on in Birmingham. We're the beneficiary of the problem. So whatever we pass, whatever this council votes on, should be the strongest the law will allow. To get Chief, who's doing a great job, all resources and leeway he needs to enforce. And shame on all of you if you don't vote for the pay raises and the new officers that he's requested.
I agree with that.
appreciate you bringing that up, and I wish that lady that said something and then left, I wish she was still here for me to say this. You bring up a great point, and I did go over some numbers. Some of the council probably is in possession of them too. Homewood is still a very safe place. I know we're not happy with what we're talking about tonight, and I get it. I think everybody here gets it. But the reality is, when I look at our crime numbers, and I look at them all the time, and I compare them to numbers from the past, and we always want to try to do better year after year. And I'm telling you, what the numbers show me is that we are trending down in crime year over year for several years in a row. So we may not perceive Homewood, and I've heard a lot of the moms in here, and I appreciate that. I have 2 children myself, so, and a wife who's a mother of those kids. I get it. They were young too at one time, and they walked places, and they wanted to be independent and go places by themselves, and we had to make parental decisions with regard to that, to their safety. So I understand it fully. But the reality is, when you look at statistics, Homewood is very safe. I'm proud to say that, and I appreciate you bringing that up. I can tell you some numbers right now that would blow your mind. I mean, we've got 82% less robberies than we had 2 years ago right now. 82%. That's unheard of. There was a time, probably 15 years ago, 14, 13 years ago, when we had 100 armed robberies in this city in a year. 100 plus. We've had 5 in 2025. Robbery is a violent crime. Indecent exposure, harassment, criminal trespass, those are not violent crimes. Robbery is a crime of violence. We've had 5. And I've been here when we've had 105 or 125. So I want us to understand that we do live and work and recreate and everything else we do in Homewood. We do it in a safe place. And the reason it's safe is because of this council and our police department. And you have a role in it too. You got to pick up the phone and call us and report things. You got to be a partner. This is a community policing environment. We've always counted on help and partnerships with you to help us do our job. Those numbers wouldn't be what they are today if it weren't for you being willing to pick up the phone, call your elected representative, or call me, or call somebody that you know in the police department, or call the mayor's office, or the city manager's office. Those numbers would be a lot higher if you weren't willing to do that. So I appreciate your willingness to do that and to partner with the police department and partner with your city council and all your elected representatives to make it as safe as it really is. And we're gonna try to make it safer. I've listened to everything said in here, believe me, and I make a mental note of it, like I did with your request and yours. And I'm gonna tell you something, you're going to see more police officers. You might see so many that you call me back and say, hey, good grief, tone it down a little bit. But you're gonna see more, I'll assure you of that, because I listen and I work for you, not the other way around, okay?
Chief, I'll make one request. You mentioned earlier there's not a category for homelessness, vagrancy, whatever the proper legal term is. Could we add that? You know, we love the weekly crime report.
We're trying. I was talking to,
I love that data.
we contract with Shelby County 911 to handle our dispatch and communication services. So actually I had one of my staff was on the phone with them today trying to get a handle on these numbers so that I could talk intelligently about them tonight. I'm not sure that I was able to do that or not, but we're working on that. We're trying to make a category so that when I call them a year from now, say, hey, how are we doing compared to where we were last year with our interactions? Are we having more interactions or less interactions with these types of crimes that are usually associated with homeless people? But if we have a code that the person taking that call and what the disposition is of that call, it would help me be able to track that. So we are working on that.
Chief, I think, I could be wrong, but I know right now there is like an altered mental status that comes across as well. And it does seem like, from what I've gathered talking with you guys, that oftentimes that does link to a situation like that. I'm not saying it's exclusive to what we're talking about, but that's one point of reference that
Yes.
usually could help.
Absolutely. That's another disposition code, if you will, or something that's put on the call notes a lot of times when we document all these. We document all of our calls in one form or fashion. So yeah, that's another disposition code or something that we would put in the call notes to help us retrieve it.
Sure.
When we need to analyze things.
Chief, just, I know you have a couple
You're good.
more people.
Good.
Councilor Wall.
So just a couple things in regards to the data. I did request for the pig count data from One Roof, who does the homeless continuum of care. See if we could get that for our zip code. I don't know how specific that is, but we have reached out to a partner so we can not only see what it looks like currently, but just year over year and compare it. Because I think that would be helpful to know, not only what Homewood looks like year over year, but also how does that compare to our region, and are we experiencing like an increased weighted share of encounters, or is it in ratio with the rest of our region? The other thing, because we've talked about the individual who exposed themselves, and they were arrested, and unfortunately they made bond, before we attempted to connect to one of the services which we're hoping to also approve in budget, which is somewhat related to this item, which is, we were working with Recovery Resource Center to connect them to a mental health and substance abuse assessment, and had worked with your sergeant to set that up, and the individual had consented to that and then made bond, and that wasn't allowed to happen, unfortunately. But on that topic, as far as budget, in addition to the work we're doing with the Crisis Center to do the assessments for individuals in the justice system, also looking to do training for our parks and public safety and other city staff on this topic and related to substance abuse and recognition of individuals who are currently intoxicated or experiencing a mental health issue, or currently some other type of episode. That's one element of it. But the other piece is we've talked some about Homewood's boundaries and not being able to go beyond that. Well, this contract will also help us in order to pair a housing navigator with One Roof, a primary physician with Cahaba Medical, and also a crisis center individual, a peer support specialist, to go out and do assessments for mental health and substance abuse. And they'll go into the encampments, if proposed through the budget, into the encampments near Palisades and towards George Ward, which are not in Homewood, but definitely impact Homewood during the day. So just wanted to reference that in addition to some of the ordinance discussion this evening. And we would be paying for those out of the opioid settlement funds if approved. We'll discuss that more on Wednesday.
This coming Wednesday?
That budget, yes.
Yeah, and Councilor Williams in Mobile and the brain, Birmingham is aware of the Green Springs. We've asked him to assist. So,
Just say something, Andy, if I could, about the defendant that Nick was talking about. We have arrested him twice. He made bond. He'll be back, because the way that works is, yeah, you make bond, but you still have to come back and have your day in court. And I hope that our judge will sentence that person, and he'll spend some time with us, and maybe we can direct resources to him while he's in our custody. So that's how that works. Just because these people make bond, and they do oftentimes, they're eligible to make bond, like any defendant in most cases. But they still have to come back and have their day in court, and there's a good chance that they're going to get a sentence imposed upon them, which means they will have to serve time in our jail. I hope that will be the case with this particular case that we were talking about in here a good bit tonight.
Hey, Andy.
Williams.
I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I just want to say one other thing for what it's worth. Saturday, I was down in Edgewood, okay? Of course, I hang out there 99% of the time. And there was a homeless guy that was over there, and he comes around, and I've seen him over by UAB. I go to Captain D's sometimes and eat my favorite meal, for what it's worth. And I asked him, what are you doing over here? Do you still hang out over by UAB? Because they would sleep back there behind those restaurants. And I was told, he said, Birmingham won't let us hang out there anymore. And neither will I guess the ones that own the restaurant. They won't let them, so they're ousted out of there. He said, now I'm gonna be in Homewood and wherever else. So that's kind of what you're talking about in Birmingham. They're pushing them out the door. And so when they do that, they're gonna go someplace else. And he's been up and down Green Springs. It's a work for him. You kind of feel sorry for him. And how do you address it?
Yeah. Thank you,
That's
Mi-
all. I just wanted to say it.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Appreciate you. Ms. Williams, I think you were next.
Yes.
Then Mr. Berger.
Melinda Williams, 234 Raymond Drive. I'm going to ask a question that I really don't expect an answer to, but I'm going to pose the question, and that is, why has the city not acknowledged the problem, except for people having to descend upon the committee room and tell their stories of despair and worry and concern? The mayor hasn't put out a statement. The city council hasn't put out a statement. The city manager hasn't put out a statement. This has been at a fever pitch for 2 or 3 weeks now, and there's been no official acknowledgement that there's a problem.
I would
And
dispute
that's
that.
why, and that's
Melinda-
why you have a room full of people who are so upset.
Melinda, Chief Ross put out a statement, the Homewood Police Department put out a statement, we made a choice, hang on, I'm not done. We made a choice to stand behind the police department's statement, so that's, and I sent a newsletter out to Ward 5, and I shared the statement, and I added my thoughts, which were the same.
Jennifer, you are far better at communicating to your constituents than anybody around this table. And I completely agree with the statement that was put out. However, it was put out in kind of a non-specific way. It just kind of popped out there, and it was not tied to the events of what had happened, like so many people were upset. So it needed to be couched in the terms of, we recognize there's a problem and here's what the process is, and it wasn't. So-
Good news is, we are hiring a communications director, that
Well,
was in the budget.
It doesn't take a communications director to stand up as a city and say, we have a problem and we're gonna try to address it, and it was not done.
I think you found a problem with anything.
This is a big problem.
Yeah.
This is a big problem.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Berger.
First of all, thanks for addressing this, Chief, appreciate you. We have very high expectations, and that puts a lot of pressure on you, but thank you for all your work that you've done up to this point, and then everything that you're committing to going forward. I think you hit the nail on the head with the deterrence. I mean, we obviously have to give him the tools that can allow him to do his job better. And there have been some really great ideas in here, and it sounds like we're working towards something that's going to work. But as far as the encampments are concerned, obviously you got to deter people from coming here for the wrong reasons and just with time on their hands and nothing to do. And so, people are going to come here because they can stay here, because they can sleep here. People are going to come here because they can ask people for money, and people will give it to them because, people around here come from, have means. And so that's where you're going to go to ask for money. And I understand it's illegal to prevent people from panhandling, except for on state and federal roadways. And so what I see is they're out here on 65 on the exits, they're out in 31 on the exits, or on Lakeshore. I believe Lakeshore is a state road. So, it's us as citizens to understand that, we don't give out things because that tells people, hey, this is a safe place to come and beg, or I get food, or I get clothing. And so this is something that I think we need to talk to our fellow residents about, but also the city, let's make sure that there aren't people begging for money sitting on 65 and 31 in Lakeshore, and because it's not okay, and that is illegal from my understanding. Mike, is that correct?
No.
State roadways?
Unfortunately, 11th Circuit, as recently as 2 months ago, affirmed the district court against the city of Montgomery, saying that they issued a permanent injunction to this homeless person declaring Alabama begging and pedestrian solicitation statute is facially unconstitutional.
On state and federal roadways?
Yes.
There's a public safety exception to just about everything, and there is for free speech, in particular. I mean, that's why you have to have a permit to.
The facts of this case is Mr. Singleton is a homeless resident of Montgomery, Alabama, who solicits help from others by holding a sign up, okay? Singleton has been cited multiple times for violating 2 Alabama statutes: the begging statute, which prohibits loitering in public for the purpose of begging, and the pedestrian solicitation statute, which prohibits standing on the highway to solicit contributions from vehicle occupants. Singleton brought a class action suit seeking to enjoin the enforcement of these statutes. Judge Myron Cook in 2023 granted a permanent injunction, declaring them to be unconstitutional. There was an appeal made to the 11th Circuit, and on April the 2nd of this year, 11th Circuit upheld the permanent injunction in enforcing those 2 statutes for peddling and solicitation on our roadway. Unfortunately, that's the current status we have.
Yeah, Chief, is it legal to stand in the middle of,
Well, that's a different thing.
the exit of Lakeshore, I-65?
Well, that's Birmingham too.
If you're impeding the flow of traffic, our magistrate has told our officers and myself that she would issue a warrant for disorderly conduct. If they are off the roadway though, they're not impeding the flow of traffic, because of that core precedent Mike was just referring to, they're not in violation of that statute anymore, that state statute. But, to your point, we have made numerous arrests where they have not stayed off the roadway and they've gone out into traffic, creating a danger to themselves or others, and we've enforced a different statute, which is the disorderly conduct statute.
So, yeah, so there are some tools there too.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. Zach Berger, 512 in my place.
Okay.
Councilor Blunt, I don't know if you heard our chief say something somewhat important about cameras. Security cameras can be used in lieu of a police witness. Has the city looked at security cameras in business districts, schools, infrastructure, so that maybe the parents and maybe the police don't have to witness it, they can use a security camera? Is that an option now that it's budget season? I just wanted to bring that up. I know I have 15 cameras at the edge alone, and they've worked pretty well.
We are adding we're replacing all the cameras here at City Hall and on associated properties. We currently do not have cameras out in the business district. We also we funded quite a few this year alone, operational cameras that are freestanding for the flock cameras, for Chief Ross's department. But those wouldn't necessarily be of the same thing. That's a little different animal. Yeah.
And the schools have cameras.
The schools have cameras, so.
And the board controls that, obviously.
That is an option.
For that property.
Mr. City Manager.
So in Santa Fe, Texas, the citizens wanted certain areas protected, and they authorized it's a little bit more expensive because you have to use the technology to be able to isolate issues, but you can install cameras. The biggest thing is public privacy issues, and the citizens basically had to vote for that and allow that to happen. So I don't know Alabama law, but in Texas, I couldn't put cameras up.
There's no vote required.
Okay.
How do you
So-
put that AI business tracking camera stuff, but not monitor?
It's not actively
Oh, yeah.
monitored, it's passive.
Yeah, it's data.
So you
Like
can put
geofencing.
cameras in with intelligence that will notice behaviors and be able to report, and that's more expensive because of the technology, but it's getting cheaper every day. So it is something that I can bring forward to the council.
You can look into it. Certainly, if we have 2 police officers we're paying forward to just ride trails, that security cameras may be a decent thing to look at from a budget standpoint. Oh, and the other thing real quick is other cities have done what they call safety buffers. So they have laws that they don't want to enforce across the city, but they do them within 100 or 500 feet of schools, critical infrastructure, parks, and that sort of thing. If you guys don't mind when you're looking, explore that concept.
So I reached out to one of our legislators to ask him, I forget the name of the office in Montgomery, to ask if we could make adjustments to the distance that people could be within certain places. I was told no, that we couldn't adjust state statute, but I don't know if that's necessarily what you're asking.
Yeah, you definitely can't.
We can't
adjust
like
state
shrink
statute.
500
We don't have
feet
that
down to
authority.
200.
Yeah, we can't.
So,
Any
did I
state preempts
categorize
us,
that
but-
correctly?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with which statute, but I guess the concept is, okay, we don't want to outlaw certain behavior in general, but maybe we don't want, let's say it's cussing out families or whatever, or something disorderly conduct type behavior that may or may not currently be a statute, may or may not be an ordinance. I think that's something that I've seen other cities do only in buffer zones, whether it's 100 or 500 feet.
So what he's saying is, could we prohibit profanity in the park?
Not just profanity, that's just like one.
I think that's,
Sure.
that's
Yeah.
already.
I get it, it's just one example.
I'm painting with a broad brush.
That's,
Okay.
that's already.
Andy, can I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
The chief said this, where is he here?
He's right there.
All right, he said it repeatedly, but you need to understand, the police can't arrest anyone unless they see them commit the crime.
It has to be a crime for them to arrest, and what we're asking for is, can we make it a crime?
No,
And then
no,
we're
it's a
not
crime
allowed to
because now, I mean, that could be
Well,
a
that was just an
public.
example.
Public trespassing is a crime presently. We have statutes, state statutes that cover all that. Profanity can be, in certain circumstances, disorderly
Disorderly
conduct.
conduct.
All these things can be done, but you gotta help the police by calling and reporting so they can come, and then if it's not happening in their presence, the citizens have to swear out a warrant. That's the only way they can be arrested.
I think what we're hearing is they're calling a lot of times, and the behavior that they're complaining about is not considered a crime.
Well, no, the behavior doesn't exist when they get there, is what I heard the chief say. And that requires the citizens that saw the behavior they complain about, then to go take the second step, as the chief has described, and swear out the warrant so we can then arrest them based on that.
Yeah.
Police officers can only arrest what they see in misdemeanors. You just gotta understand that. If they don't see their presence, they can't arrest anybody.
Just from our experience, I don't think most citizens know that.
Yeah.
In the 9/11 folks in Shelby County aren't telling us, hey, go down and swear out a warrant. So fortunately / unfortunately, this gentleman we've been talking about came back the next day, and so that's what we did once we were told that. But I mean, I do think there needs to be some sort of public
We did a PSA, a public service announcement about that, and I think maybe.
That's actually why we came back.
Right, so it worked, but.
But we didn't know that before, and I think it needs to be regularly done.
Yeah, what I want to happen really is when you call the police and you make a report about the activity that you witnessed, that officer should tell you, all right, Mr. McIntyre, now I want to tell you, go see our magistrate, talk about this incident, and you can swear out a warrant for this person's arrest. That's what needs to be and should be being done in every report that we take on a misdemeanor crime that we didn't witness. But as you pointed out, from time to time, we'll push that out like we did. We'll push that information out because, and JJ, you said something too. Sometimes we get calls about activity that's perceived to be criminal in nature, and we find out that it's not. That's a fair statement too. Sometimes the things that you call us about are not in fact crimes. Sometimes you make a report with us for something you perceive to be a crime, and you go sit down with the magistrate says, no, there's not enough here, there's not enough probable cause here for me to issue a warrant for this person's arrest. That's just
like bathing in a public creek, that's a stormwater infrastructure. So the ordinance I sent disallows that, right? So Mike, that is not a crime in Homewood. It is a crime in our neighboring cities in the southeast. So critical infrastructure, school, those are things where you can police conduct like bathing. And we can't bathe in there either. Like it applies equally. But you should not be able to bathe in critical infrastructure under bridges and stuff like that. That is what I'm trying to Mr. Kendrick, just trying to explain. There is stuff like that being done in neighboring cities if we want to benchmark and take a look, and then you guys can decide if it makes sense here.
Good point.
Yeah. And I think we're happy to talk about, unfortunately, I do think we have to get specific about them, like bathing and things like that, but in terms of conduct that we feel like is in a gap, let's first of all determine if it is in a gap. And if it is, then let's see if we can do something about it. Because some of it is not in a gap, right? Some of the things we've talked about tonight are not in it. We've established they're not in a gap. But if there are things in the gap, then absolutely, let's figure out how to address it.
I did try to include pretty much every single instance that I'm aware of the last month in those 11 pages, and they're pulled from other cities. So if we want to go through that, it's not perfect, but I think everyone would have higher confidence if we at least said, hey, we already have it, or hey, we don't have it, and here's why we can't have it.
Right, and I think this is what you're saying as well, is it's good for everyone to know that it's not, if it's not in a gap, that it's not in a gap, right? That this is something we have a statute on, or a state statute on, or a local ordinance on. I think that would be good as well in terms of being able to identify those as, hey, this is already covered by disorderly conduct, or whatever it is.
So JJ, if you have a city that regulates currently bathing in the creek,
yes, sir.
Please let me know about it.
It's in the 11 pages.
No, I saw the 11 pages, but on criminal statutes, you need to be precise. You can't do a shotgun approach for
It
criminal.
literally says bathing.
I understand that, but what city does that?
I mean, I can go find a city.
Well, I thought you said you had already looked at it.
The ordinances I sent you are from other cities, but it's not all one city.
Well, what city is bathing in?
I'm happy to follow up with you if you'll shoot me an email.
If you do that, appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so hands that I saw up, Miss Her, and I think Miss McIntyre. Did you have your hand up? So Miss Her? Okay, Miss McIntyre.
Yeah, Tiffany
Yield it a time.
McIntyre, 1508 Parkside Court. So I think another issue, and like Chief Ross, I had mentioned this to Officer Battles the day that all of this happened. But when I first contacted you guys, I didn't know at the time I was dealing with Shelby County. And so now I know, because they kept asking me, well, where are you? I'm like, I am at the BP beside Dawson. Well, where is that? And there was just such communication, it took them forever to even get there. I told them I wanted to speak to a police officer that night. They had my name, they had my number. Peaches unfortunately had walked away by the time that the officers figured out where I was. And thank goodness it was Officer Battles again the very next day. But I think there's also just a breakdown in communication when people are contacting the police as well. Because first of all, like my husband said, none of us even knew, because they had my phone number and my name. And I actually continued to follow Peaches until I saw the officers get there, and I thought, okay, they caught up to him, it's fine, I can go. I had no clue I was gonna have to speak to someone and tell them I wanted to swear out a warrant. I had no idea until the next day. And I think what's concerning about all of that is the next day, Peaches ended up showing up at the time our kids were getting out of school, walking down to the strip. And thank goodness I had friends that were there, and I said, tell the officer to remain, I will be there in 10 minutes, I'm on my way. And so, but I mean, we as community members, we should not have to do that. Like, I should not have to, you know, stop what I'm doing to get down there to make sure this warrant gets, you know, sworn out when it could have been done the next day. I mean, what if I've been out of town or something, you know, and it was being dependent on me to swear out the arrest. Like, I mean, I just think there needs to be better communication, and I just think things need to be taken a little bit more seriously, because, you know, like Betsy said, I mean, instead we're just kind of being ridiculed, and whenever we bring things up, we're being made fun of, and, you know, we're being told that we're the problem, you know, and we're having comments that, oh, the creek bather person is the victim, and let's, you know, make sure that we're making him feel better. No, our children are the victims, and parents that are having to deal with dangerous situations. And that's ultimately the problem. I mean, you know, Patriot Park is insanity. When you've got parents that are walking that path in the morning around Patriot Park, and they're picking up used condoms and underwear and needles before our kids are walking there every day, that's a problem. So, I mean, I appreciate this encampment thing, but it's got to be bigger. I mean, we all live in Homewood for a reason. We pay taxes here for a reason. We have our kids going to the #1 school system for a reason, you know, and I'm sorry, things are gonna have to be better.
Well, let me just ask you a couple questions to follow
Yes.
up. Did you have a negative experience with our police officers?
No, Officer
Okay.
Battles, honestly, I want to be her friend.
Okay.
Like, she was,
That's
I'm telling
the
you,
general consensus.
we had an
Sorry.
incredible conversation with her. Like, I'm like, I need to be friends with this lady. She was amazing. No,
Okay.
your police officers were incredible. It was
Yeah.
the communication.
From the 911.
I got you. So let me just say, that contract that's in place with Shelby County 911 is how old, Brandon? How long have we been doing that?
Not even quite a year, so.
Yeah, it's still relatively new. We're working out some bugs, and you make a good point. They're not sitting in Homewood, Alabama when they're taking your phone call.
And I didn't know that.
And maybe they've never been to Homewood, Alabama. I don't know. But our experience with them so far has been good, I think.
I would like to
with
ask
both
how you
departments.
called. Did you dial the
So
911 number?
originally I called non-emergency and nobody answered, so then I immediately hung up and called 911.
Oh,
And
so-
that's when I got the Shelby County lady.
That's what we would encourage. 911 gives us so many more resources. The state system, and part of the reason we went to Shelby County is the technology that's there. when you dial 911 from a cell phone or text 911, so in particular the stories I've heard tonight, if you're ever uncomfortable, you don't have to call. You can text 911 and it opens up the location services to your phone. It allows us to see where you're at for about 20 minutes after you make that initial contact. So that gives our officers a big resource to be able to track you down if we need to. So I encourage people all the time, dial 911 first. In the past, we've kind of pushed you to the non-emergency number. We were trying to get away from that. The fact they couldn't pull your location if you dial 911 on a phone is a problem, and I would like to dig in a little bit more where, because what they get on their side, do what we call a rapid SOS portal, is the exact location that shows up when you open your maps. So within feet of where your phone is.
Yeah.
So if that ever happens again here, make sure one of us know about it.
Yeah, I did
We
tell
will.
Officer Battles about that, and she was surprised to hear, they actually
Yeah,
sent her
that's-
to the wrong gas station.
That's not normal.
And that's why it took her so long to get there. She was incredible explaining everything to me the next day about what happened the night before. And she also said that Shelby County 911 also didn't relay my message to them correctly. Because we were in a fairly dangerous situation just because I didn't want our children to be in a situation, so I just chose to stay there. But Peaches was confronting us, demanding credit cards. I'm talking like in your face. It was unacceptable, like dangerous. And I was telling the 911 lady, this is getting dangerous. I need HPD here now. Well, 15 minutes later, HPD finally showed up. So, and that is not your fault. Like, I'm not saying that that is y'all's fault, but
No,
I'm
it's-
just trying to
it's
relate that it's a
unacceptable.
dangerous situation.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting me know that. I didn't know those details until now. I appreciate you letting me know, because it's unacceptable regardless of whose fault it is.
Yeah.
And let us review that and make sure that that doesn't happen in the future. Like I said, we're still sort of in a process of where we're ironing out some bugs on a monthly basis with this new contract and letting them do our emergency communications, dispatching and so forth. It's not perfect yet,
Yeah.
as evidenced by what you just said. But let me try my best to make sure that that doesn't happen again, regardless of whose fault it is. But I appreciate you bringing it to my attention.
Yeah, no problem.
Particularly, the HPD has a dedicated dispatcher at the Shelby County Center, so we didn't lose our dedicated people. Obviously, we were having problems staffing here, but they are just at a more high-tech center. The technology that is available to them now is so much greater than what we were able to afford by ourselves in Homewood in our 911 center. It's part of the reason we made the jump. I think our officers have really enjoyed it. I know on the fire side, our partnerships with our neighbors have so much better than they used to be. But there are going to be little things like that. But what I would encourage, I've served as the 911 director for the city of Homewood since 2018. I was probably the one that spearheaded the change down to Shelby County. If you ever have a problem with the 911, I want to know about it. My cell phone number is posted everywhere. I think most people in here had it tonight. So don't let those go unnoticed. Just like he's talking about the crime, I'm glad Chief Ross is here. But if it's somebody doesn't act right on 911, make sure we know about it. We can address it.
And they're handling, by the way, they're, just for everybody's information, Shelby County 911 handles dispatching, emergency dispatching and communications for, how many agencies do you think, Randy? 30?
They do. So they do Mountain Brook, Vestavia, us,
some of our
and
closest
everybody in Shelby
neighbors.
County.
Yeah, so a lot of people have a lot of confidence in their services, which is why we decided to contract with them. And I think we're going to be happy that we've done that, ultimately.
Well, and that position is delivered to you guys from the cellular provider. It's not 911 triangulating. It's coming off those towers.
That's correct. So
Yeah.
one of the things that we did first in the state is, I'm going to geek out a little bit, sorry. We have what we call a FIPS code. So if you dial 911 from your phone, once your carrier hands it to our network in the state of Alabama, we then control that call. And we know everything about that, from your triangular motion, which cell towers you're hitting, down to the GPS data in the phone. And we even have some technology where we can send you a link. You click it, it'll open your camera, and you can show us what's going on. So that is coming out really, really soon. It's one of the things we wanted to see. We talked about that earlier. If you can get it on video, it's going to help us. But I do want y'all to walk away with the knowing that you can text 911. If you can't call, text. It still opens those location services. It gives us access to have that communication so that we'll know where you're at. Particularly if you're uncomfortable and you don't feel like calling. Text us and we will still get there.
We'll get Brian to update that on the city website that the non-emergency line is DOA. It works, but
I have added
911's a better choice.
information now on the case.
Okay. Did I miss anybody? You want to go? Okay, Miss Hurt. Sorry, I thought you were.
First of all, I want to say how much I appreciate every committee member sitting through all this and giving everyone a voice. I really appreciate that. I have two things. One for Chief Ross and about bonding out and Peaches coming back again over and over. If he's homeless, who pays the bond?
In his specific situation, a trans activist group in Birmingham.
Pardon me?
A trans activist group paid it. Resources.
I see. Okay. So then the other thing is, to JJ's point about reallocation of police officers, and it kind of goes back to the meeting that you had prior on public safety for the budget. You have to spend the money as you budgeted for it. You budgeted 3 new police officers, 2 of whom will be assigned to the trails. Can you reallocate any of that once once the budget is approved?
Yeah, Chief can reallocate his officers as he deems necessary. Because they were not tied directly to the trail. That's the preferred use for them. But if you needed them somewhere else, you could use them elsewhere.
So that would be a council decision.
No, that would be
police department.
Yeah.
A Chief Ross decision. Okay.
But keep in mind, in addition to those 3 that we're hopefully getting, I have 87 other ones. So what they're basically saying to you is, I'm gonna listen, as I've mentioned earlier, to all of these concerns, and some of the things that have been said in here and brought to my attention will likely lead me to reallocating personnel already before I ever get those 3 new people. Like I said, you may see a market increase in the amount of officers in Edgewood or Patriot Park or some other places that we're experiencing these problems that we're talking about tonight. So I have the ability to do that at any time, and it's a great thing about having as many police officers as we have. Gives me the luxury of being able to do that to address problems.
And I think that's going to settle a lot of the moms down. Because I'm the one that started the petition. I was very hot. I mean, like, 2 of those instances were in like my children's friend's front yard, and their moms were like on the phone so it was a very, very concern, because our children, they grow up in a safe bubble. They don't know to watch out for things, or if someone comes up to you, don't talk to them. And that's a conversation as a parent we've had to tell my son, who is 10 and he's in 4th grade and rides to and from school and through Edgewood to his friend's house and things like that. But I think it's just an initial shock, because they've never had that. The children live in this safe little bubble. They're not aware to be looking out for stranger danger, things like that. And so like now that they are having to, and we're having to have conversations, I think it's just like made a lot of, but I think the police presence increase is gonna help tremendously, because then the children will also see, like I've told Tucker, if there's someone that's doing something they're not supposed to, or looks or talks to you, find an adult, find a policeman, so I think that the children will feel more comfortable too, seeing that there's more police presence.
Good. I hope that's the effect that it has. That's what it normally has. That's why police presence is so important. That's why we wear uniforms. That's why we drive around in a marked unit that's clearly visible as a police officer or a police car.
Just one more thing. When you get a call like this in the future, could you send an unmarked car so you can witness the crime?
Hey, believe it or not, we do that. We have unmarked working, around the clock in different capacities, and sometimes they beat our marked units to these calls, especially emergency calls. True emergency calls. A lot of times our unmarks are out there rolling around, and they end up beating our marked units there for one reason or another. But yes, ma'am, we can do that.
Okay. So I've got a laundry list of items on here, and I will make the note that many of the recommendations that were brought before us do not require council action. A lot of them are discussion-based, allocation of resources with you, which like you said, you've got those committed to memory. Some of those are Brian updating the website and making some information more readily available, so that people can find it, and maybe we even send that information out via our communication mechanisms. And then also the items that do need an ordinance. We'll get together and find out which ones those are and how we need to make that targeted approach on those items. They'll probably be individual items. So for this item that is at hand, the encampment ordinance will address, as we previously stated, camping and sleeping situations, and sleeping in vehicles. Are there any questions from the committee, since I have not canvassed any of you yet, or other counselors?
No, I know you've done a lot of work on this. I know we get accused of not doing enough, but I know you've done a lot of work already. I appreciate that, Andy. I really do.
Thank you, appreciate that. I appreciate y'all being good teammates. So,
See something, say something.
that's right.
Heard that before.
911.
Yep.
Okay, if there are no further questions about the ordinance, I would entertain a motion for approval or denial.
Second.
Motion for approval by Counselor Wolverton, second by Counselor Nellens. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. 5-0. We still have
What I'll do
everybody.
is draft an ordinance, get it to the chief and the magistrate for their approval, so the magistrate can ensure that we can take action on it. The chief
So-
gets what he needs.
Thank you, Mr. Kendrick. For those in the room that are still here, this ordinance will be drafted by Mr. Kendrick, and it will be at council next Monday. There's not a public hearing related to it. Yeah, hopefully. And we will vote this into law essentially next Monday. And then we can also add referral items on Monday as well, once we convene. Seeing no further questions, public safety is adjourned.